Yo, here's another one for the road. This is getting into the reproductive system. Basically, if you get to the reproductive system in 211, you are in what my grandfather used to call the short rows. In other words, you're at the end of this work day, and it's about to be a wonderful day. So try to hold on there. You're almost there. You're almost at the end. So want to just do a quick reminder that there is a lab exam when we return from spring break. I typically don't have exams after we get back from spring break, but online is different. In order to get all of the exams in and for you to have enough time to recoup and recalibrate for the final exam, this lab exam wound up falling right after spring break. So make sure you keep that in mind. It opens on Tuesday and Wednesday of the week that we return back from spring break. I hope that you guys have been keeping up with the lab material for that exam. Um, if not, please touch base with me. I'm going to try to post a little lab review talk about what you should, look over and things like that. If you have any lab questions, please shoot me an email. It doesn't seem like too many people have been having trouble with the lab. Um, some people have had some questions about some things, some some discussionary questions about some of the pictures and whatnot. And I will probably say a lot of that has to do with just the fact that it's online and we're not face to face. I've been trying to figure out some ways to really go over the material to help people better understand. And I'm grateful for your feedback this semester because I think that there are some things that we could do to kind of improve on that. And I want to see if I can get that done. And I also want to try to put together some kind of review for the final exam. Don't really know how I'm going to pull that off yet, but we'll see what we can do. As far as lecture is concerned with the reproductive system, all right, I'm going to warn you about this chapter. Okay, number one, this chapter is not hard. I don't get any complaints from any students about the reproductive chapter. I do get one comment, and I totally agree with this comment. That chapter is a lie. And the reason why I say that is because really it's two chapters in one. They make you feel like it's going to be one chapter, but really you need to treat that chapter like it's two. If you treat it like it's two, it'll be fine and you'll be okay. But if you treat it like it's one chapter, you'll wait till the last minute to study this thing and be like, man, it's just way too much stuff. That's when people are trying to put answers on the test trying to say that ovaries are found in males and that the prostate gland is responsible for making okie dokie hormone or something. So if you don't want to be that person, just go ahead and start reviewing this stuff now. I actually have some lecture videos that I can post on Blackboard this week so that it can cut down a whole lot of studying time where it goes in depth on the lecture notes, stuff that's going to answer some questions on the study guide. Literally, if you watch these videos that I'm going to post later on this weekend, that I've done and I've already posted on YouTube, that go over the reproductive system. Now, let me tell you some key things about the reproductive system. Number one, the male and the female reproductive system, they have basic functional similarities. We all know that they have structural differences. That's obvious. But the functional similarities, those are things you want to keep in mind. For example, both systems create gametes, which are sex cells. So the male produce spermatocytes, which mature into regular sperm cells, and then the females produce oocytes, which are egg cells, which are actually immature egg cells. Number two, both of their systems provide nutrients and maturity to both cells. Both systems store those cells. Another similarity is that they both make sex hormones. So the female reproductive tract is going to produce things like estrogen and progesterone and inhibin. while the male reproductive tract is going to produce things like testosterone and inhibin. Now, there are a ton of differences. For example, gamete production. And I would probably say gamete production is the thing that really throws people for a loop. And here's what you need to understand. So, males, we don't make gametes until we hit puberty. All right? Human males, anyway. I can't speak on all animals, but human males do not produce gametes until um, until puberty. Once we hit puberty, then we create about 500,000,000 sperm cells a day. Um, Females, however, by the time they reach month 6 as a fetus, they've produced all of the gametes that they're ever going to have in life. So uh, when females, before they're born, they've produced all the egg cells they're ever going to have. But then these egg cells kind of go in a recess. They pause. They don't continue to mature like sperm cells do. Sperm cells, in a few weeks, they've matured and they're ready to rock and roll. Egg cells aren't like that. Egg cells, they go through several levels of maturation and then they stop. They actually go on pause. And from birth until puberty, those egg cells do nothing. And then once a woman hits puberty, instead of all those egg cells being available, she only releases one egg cell a month through a process called ovulation, versus the male who releases 500,000,000. By the time a woman reaches menopause, all of her egg cells are spent, whereas a male, as long as he's got them, he has the ability, he will continue to produce gametes. Some things you want to watch out in this chapter is you want to map out the track. Now, I made a comment about this with the digestive system, so I'm trying to say this a little earlier. You definitely need to map out the track for the digestive system so you understand where things are happening. This is the part of the chapter that you don't memorize your way through. This is the part of the chapter where you kind of have to understand where things are and what's happening next. So you need to understand that sperm production begins in the seminiferous tubules within the testes, and then those cells leave the seminiferous tubules and go into the epididymis, and they mature in the epididymis, and they can be stored in the epididymis, and then they go through that to the vas deferens, and then they merge. That merges with the seminal vesicles, which combine fluids, passes through the ejaculatory duct to go through the spongy urethra, not your spongy urethra, but the prostatic urethra, which passes through the prostate. Then it passes through the membranous urethra, which passes by the bulbal urethral glands. Then it goes into the spongy urethra. And then from the spongy urethra, it exits the body. For the female, you've got two different things you got to learn. You got to learn the pathway that sperm travel to meet the egg, and then you got to learn the pathway that the egg takes to meet the sperm, and then you got to learn the exit strategy for the fetus for birth, parturition. So you have to understand that when ovulation takes place, the egg cell leaves that follicle on the ovary. It gets caught by the infundibulum. It passes through the uterine tube or the fallopian tube through three different sections, and then if it meets with a sperm cell, it implants itself inside the uterus, which is next on the uterine wall. And then for birth, the baby passes from the uterus through the cervix and through the vaginal canal and then outside of the body. So you need to keep that in mind. That should be like basic. That's just implanted in the back of your head, like you know how to get home when you leave work every day. That's the same way that those processes should be in male and female. Hormone production, you should understand testosterone production in the male, that it ebbs and flows. Like men have a cycle, just like women have a cycle. Women's cycle is like 28 days average. Okay, that's an average. I understand that not everybody is the same, especially women. I had a friend who was 34 days. Actually, I had a friend who she had two periods a month. So her period was like every 13 or 14 days. And then I've seen people who their period was like every 35, 36 days. So it can differ for every woman, but 28 is just the supposed average. Um, a man's cycle is like every 12 hours. So it like ebbs and flows. You can actually measure it like 6 a.m., 6 p.m. You can see the rise and the fall, the dip in testosterone production. It's nuts. Um, so that's another thing with the hormones with the male. It's real easy because it's just really just one. It's testosterone. You got gonadotropin releasing hormone comes from the hypothalamus, tells the anterior pituitary to release follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone, it targets the testes, specifically the seminiferous tubules, for sperm cell production. Luteinizing hormone, LH, targets the interstitial cells, which produce testosterone. And then the cycle cycles. In the female, not so simple. Sorry, ladies. You still have gonadotropin releasing hormone. You still have follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, except they do something quite a bit different. They target the female gonads, plain and simple. Follicle stimulating hormone induces follicular growth. LH really doesn't target anything until you start getting closer to about day 10. Then LH starts targeting those follicles to produce lots of fluid, which by the time you get to day 14 causes so much fluid buildup in the follicle that it pops. We call that ovulation. Once that happens, over a period of a couple of days and hours, you begin to see more of a production of progesterone more than anything else. And progesterone kind of takes over just in case the person gets pregnant. If the person gets pregnant, then progesterone is the dominant hormone. If they're not pregnant, progesterone drops off the bat. You start producing estrogen again, and that signals the uterus to actually say, hey, let's get rid of this endometrial lining by having a period. So we can talk about the whole ovarian cycle and the uterine cycle in another video later on as well. Kind of talk about that and explain how that works. So those are things that you need to understand actually. It's not that stuff's not a memorization game. It's going to get real tricky and really confusing if you try to memorize it. Some people, they just go ahead and say, dude, I ain't got time for understanding. I'm just gonna have to memorize. Some people do all right, and then other people just like straight bomb that test trying to do it. And they typically tell me, they said the main reason was they tried to memorize it and didn't work. Some people have their memorize game. Sometimes their memorization game is hard. Like y'all got that thing down pat. For those of you who do, more power to you. Um, but for some of the rest of us, like myself, my memorization game is not all that great. I have to understand material. So I wind up having to spend extra time studying, which explains why my eyes look tired a lot because I'm up at night trying to study this stuff, trying to understand this stuff. So when you get into that, make sure you separate this chapter into two separate chapters and tackle the male and tackle the female. Give yourself enough time to study this chapter, and that way you can get through this thing, and then you can get into chapter 29. I don't have a whole lot on this lecture test from chapter 29, so in another video that I'm going to post next week about chapter 29, I'm going to kind of narrow the focus on some stuff I really want you to study. I don't want you studying everything in chapter 29. That's going to be like a waste of your time, dude. I think I probably got like about 15 questions on that last test from chapter 29. I have to go back and look and see because it's been a while since I was working on that test. I got to make sure I finish the test because I got to load it up for you guys to take. But I'll go back and I'll narrow the focus on what you really should study from chapter 29. 28 is different. I'm literally telling you what's on the test right now. And a lot of it is stuff you got to kind of understand what it means. And then the rest is just memorization. And once again, I'll do a review message, a review announcement, and a review video, just literally reviewing over the test itself. Because I really want you guys to do well, and I really want you guys to knock this out the box. So enjoy the rest of your spring break. If you got any questions, shoot them to me. I will admit that probably starting Thursday, between and Friday, Saturday, I'll probably be really off the grid. For those of you who don't know, I'm the curator and director for TEDx Greenville. So that conference is this Friday, and our rehearsal process is Thursday. And fortunately for me, it falls on our spring break. So I will definitely be knee deep in TED Talks on Thursday and Friday, as I'm the guy who's running it. Um, so I probably won't be responding to email those 2 days. And then Saturday, I will be at the Minority Health Summit at the TD Center. I encourage all of you guys to come out to that because it is free. Some of you might be there, especially if you got a job as a GHS. You'll probably be there with your families. And I'll be at iMagine as well, which is the big STEM and STEAM event downtown Greenville's, and it's free. So if you got kids, oh please, you need to bring your kids out to that. That'll give your kids a chance to build robots, fly drones, and do Lego challenges for free. Did I mention free? You people who want to get kids out of the house for free, it's for free. And if I see you out there, just if you see me and I don't see you, holla at me and we can chat it up. All right. Uh, hold it down. Enjoy your week off. I'll see you soon. Peace.